Crown Emergency Services, Chapter 10, Under Fire. Several weeks had passed since the refinery incident. For the first time in months, the station felt normal. Captain Aaron Rourke stood on the station floor, overlooking the controlled chaos of the morning shift. Firefighters moved between vehicles, mechanics inspected equipment, rescue crews updated inventories and completed reports from previous operations. Normal. Aaron had learned long ago not to take normal for granted. Normal meant nobody was dying. Normal meant families were eating breakfast together. Normal meant Crown Emergency Services was doing its job. The main station doors opened. Weston Howard walked inside carrying a stack of datapads nearly half a meter high. Aaron immediately frowned. "Who died?" Weston stopped. "What? You're carrying paperwork." Several firefighters nearby laughed. Weston stared at the pile in his arms. "I fought pirates in the Southern Strait." Aaron nodded. "I boarded hostile vessels." "Sounds dangerous." "I survived Royal Marine training." Aaron crossed his arms. "Paperwork still wins." Laughter erupted throughout the bay. Weston groaned. "I miss combat." That's a concerning thing for a Marine to say inside a fire station. It's either this or government liaison meetings. "Paperwork it is." The laughter returned. Even Weston couldn't help smiling. Life had become strangely comfortable at Station 51. Officially, he remained a Royal Marine assigned to temporary duty with Crown Emergency Services. Unofficially, he spent most of his time at Station 51. Much of the staff had adopted him, especially Richard Hale and Jace Torrin. The three had become nearly inseparable. An hour later, they occupied a table in the station kitchen. Richard sat with a mug of coffee. Jace was halfway through breakfast. Weston looked like he was considering setting his paperwork on fire. "You know," Richard said, "arson is generally discouraged." Weston looked up. "What?" "You were staring at those reports." "I was thinking." "You were absolutely thinking about burning them." Jace nodded. "I've seen that expression before." Weston pointed at them. "You're both terrible influences." "We're firefighters," Richard said. "We literally fight fire." "Exactly. Professionals." The three laughed. For a few moments there were no attacks, no emergencies, no political complications, just friends sharing breakfast. None of them realized how quickly that would change. Inside Station 51's maintenance facility, Tech Jim Marshall and Royal Marine technician Sarah Meadows stood beneath the towering form of Odin's heavy assault exo frame. Nearby sat Richard's fire frame. The contrast between the machines couldn't have been greater. The fire frame bore scars, scratches, replacement armor plates, evidence of countless rescue operations. The heavy assault frame looked different. Everything about it radiated strength, purpose, violence. Jim walked around the fire frame. "This machine survives combat because Richard refuses to quit." Sarah nodded. Then she looked towards the heavy assault frame. "That machine survives combat because it was designed for it." Weeks of testing had produced mountains of data. Both exoframes possessed strengths the other lacked. The conclusion had become unavoidable. The kingdom needed something new. A hybrid fire frame, a machine capable of rescue operations in active combat zones. Jim held up the final report. "Ready to send?" Sarah smiled. "I think the Crown is going to like this." Far across the city, members of Liberation Front prepared for war. The explosion itself wasn't the objective. The fire wasn't the objective. The casualties weren't even the objective. Richard Hale was the objective. His image appeared on screens throughout the room. News reports, interviews, rescue footage, the hero of the refinery, the face of Crown Emergency Services. Their leader stared at the screen. "The people trust him." No one spoke. "They cheer him." Still silence. "He reminds them the kingdom protects them." The leader's expression darkened. "Today we prove otherwise." The screen changed. A chemical storage warehouse, nearby residential districts, projected response routes, emergency service staging areas, expected civilian gathering locations. Every detail had been studied, every response predicted. They weren't attacking a fire, they were attacking the people who would respond to it. The explosion shook half the city. A massive fireball erupted into the sky. Station 51 alarms activated instantly. "Major incident. All available units respond." Captain Rourke was already moving. "Let's go." The station exploded into action. Fire engines launched. Rescue vehicles departed. Medical teams mobilized. Richard climbed into the fire frame. Jace joined the response convoy. Within minutes, Station 51 was empty. Almost. Weston remained behind. His government paperwork still sat waiting. He stared at it, then sighed. One day I'm going to win. The fire scene was chaos. Smoke climbed hundreds of meters into the sky. Flames consumed multiple structures. Emergency crews established command zones. Police secured roads. Media drones circled overhead. Hundreds of civilians gathered despite repeated warnings. Captain Rourke coordinated the entire response from the command center. Richard's fireframe moved through burning debris. Massive hydraulic arms lifted collapsed beams. Fire suppression systems hammered flames. Victims were carried to safety. Jace organized evacuation routes. Everything looked like a difficult but manageable disaster. Then the shooting started. Automatic weapons erupted from multiple directions. The first police officers went down. Panic spread instantly. Crowds scattered. Explosions struck emergency vehicles. Masked Liberation Front fighters emerged from alleyways, rooftops, and abandoned buildings. The fire had been bait. Richard's fireframe staggered as rounds hammered its armor. Warning lights flashed. "Richard!" Jace shouted over communications. "We have armed hostiles everywhere. I see them!" Another explosion rocked the street. People screamed. Emergency crews were trapped. Civilians were trapped. The attack was unfolding exactly as Liberation Front intended. Captain Rourke stood inside the command vehicle, directing dozens of units simultaneously. A young firefighter looked at the blood running down Aaron's arm. "Captain, you're hit." Aaron glanced at it. "A piece of shrapnel. Nothing serious. I noticed." "Sir, you should get treatment." "No." "Captain?" "No." His voice carried the authority of decades of service. "My people are still out there." Nobody argued. Richard positioned the fireframe across a major intersection. Behind him sat dozens of civilians trapped by gunfire. His machine wasn't built for combat, but retreat wasn't an option. The fireframe became a shield. Hydraulic arms hurled debris to create barriers. Burning vehicles were pushed into defensive positions. Every second brought another family a chance to escape. But there were too many attackers, too many directions, too many casualties. For the first time, Richard wondered if they might lose, 20 kilometers away. Prince Alistair stared at incoming intelligence reports. The attack was larger than anyone expected. Military support remained too far away. Emergency crews were pinned down. Civilian casualties were climbing. Then he saw one available asset. Weston Howard, Odin, heavy assault exoframe. The prince immediately issued the order. "Authorize combat deployment. Station 51. Weston's datapad chimed. His expression changed as he read the message. The joking firefighter disappeared. The Royal Marine remained. "Combat authorization confirmed," Odin announced. Weston stood. "What are the rules of engagement?" "Active terrorist attack, armed hostiles engaging civilians and emergency personnel." Weston nodded once. "Understood." The maintenance bay erupted into activity. Jim Marshall and Sarah ran final checks. Armor locks engaged, weapon systems activated, missile pods loaded, autocannons armed. The heavy assault frame awakened. The machine suddenly looked less like equipment and more like what it truly was, a battlefield weapon. Jim stepped back. "Bring them home." Weston climbed into the cockpit. "I intend to." The hatch sealed. Moments later, the heavy assault frame launched towards the city. Back at the battle, Richard continued fighting. Smoke, fire, gunfire, screaming. Everywhere he looked, people needed help. The situation continued to deteriorate. Then the ground began to shake. Heavy impacts echoed through the district. One after another, everyone stopped. Liberation Front fighters turned. A massive armored silhouette emerged through the smoke, the heavy assault frame, and inside it sat a Royal Marine. The battle was about to change. The heavy assault frame emerged from the smoke like a walking fortress. Every footstep shook the pavement. Burning vehicles reflected from its armored plating. Emergency lights flashed across weapon housings and reinforced armor. Through the haze and fire, it looked less like a machine and more like a force of nature. Liberation Front fighters stopped firing for a moment. Many had never seen a Royal Marine heavy assault frame in person. Most had only seen recordings. Those recordings had not done it justice. Inside the cockpit, Weston Howard studied the battlefield. The tactical display painted a grim picture. Dozens of armed insurgents, multiple civilian clusters, emergency crews trapped. Richard's fireframe pinned down at the center of the district. Captain Rourke's command post under sporadic attack. Weston's jaw tightened. "Odin." "Yes, Lieutenant Howard. Prioritize threats against civilians. Target package prepared." Red markers appeared across his display. Weston advanced. The first insurgent firing position occupied the upper floor of a damaged office building. Automatic weapons hammered emergency vehicles below. Weston didn't slow down. The heavy assault frame raised one arm. The autocannon fired. The entire firing position disappeared behind a cloud of concrete dust and shattered glass. The gunfire stopped immediately. Nearby civilians cheered. Weston ignored them. More targets remained. Richard looked up from behind a burning bus. "About time!" Jace's voice crackled through communications. "That's Weston." Richard watched the heavy assault frame walk through incoming fire without hesitation. "Yep. Remind me never to make him angry." Liberation Front fighters attempted to reposition. They had expected firefighters. They had expected police. They had expected lightly armed security personnel. Instead, they had encountered a Royal Marine combat platform. Their carefully planned ambush began unraveling. Weston moved methodically. Every target was selected. Every shot served a purpose. A vehicle being used as cover, a rooftop sniper, a barricade blocking evacuation routes. One by one, they vanished from the battlefield, not through reckless destruction, through precision. Years of military training guided every movement. A group of insurgents attempted to advance toward a cluster of trapped civilians. Odin highlighted them instantly. Threat level critical. Weston accelerated. The heavy assault frame surged forward. The street cracked beneath its weight. The insurgents turned just as the machine arrived. The enormous armored shoulder struck their defensive position. Barricades collapsed. Weapons scattered. The attack on the civilians ended before it could begin. Weston immediately moved on to the next threat. No celebration, no hesitation, just duty. At the command post, Captain Aaron Rourke watched battlefield reports update. For the first time since the attack began, casualty projections were dropping. Emergency crews were regaining ground. Evacuation corridors were opening. The battle was turning. "All units," Aaron transmitted. "Advanced rescue operations. Repeat, advanced rescue operations." Firefighters moved immediately. The moment they had been waiting for had arrived. Richard pushed deeper into the disaster zone. The fireframe lifted a collapsed steel beam. A trapped family emerged from beneath it. Jace and rescue crews rushed forward. Another life saved. Then another. Then another. Richard smiled despite the chaos. This was what he was built for. Weston created openings. Crown Emergency Services used them. Together they were taking the district back. Realizing the attack was failing, Liberation Front leaders attempted to withdraw. Some fled into nearby industrial buildings. Others tried escaping through service tunnels. Odin tracked them all. "Hostile command elements attempting retreat," Weston nodded. "They don't get to disappear after this." The heavy assault frame advanced again. Not recklessly, not angrily, relentlessly. Every move cut off another escape route. Every action forced the insurgents farther from civilians and closer to arriving security forces. The trap they had created was becoming a trap for themselves. 20 minutes later, the battle was effectively over. Military reinforcements finally arrived. Police secured the remaining streets. Medical crews flooded the area. The sounds of combat gradually faded. Smoke drifted across the ruined district. Firefighters continued working among damaged buildings. Rescue teams searched for survivors. The city was wounded, but it had survived. Weston stood beside Richard's battered fire frame. Both machines bore fresh scars. Neither had escaped the battle untouched. For a long moment, neither man spoke. Finally, Richard looked over. "You know, most people bring coffee when they visit." Weston laughed. "I'll remember that next time." Jace walked up, covered in soot and exhaustion. "If there is a next time, bring 2 coffees." "Deal." Captain Aaron Rourke approached a few moments later. His uniform was stained. His arm was bandaged. He looked exhausted. The 3 younger men immediately straightened. Aaron studied the damaged district, the exhausted firefighters, the injured civilians being treated, the crews still working despite everything they had endured. Then he looked at Richard. "Jace, Weston. Good work today." Coming from Aaron Rourke, it might as well have been a medal. For a moment, nobody said anything. Then Richard nodded, because they all knew the truth. Today could have ended much differently. Today they had won. And somewhere in the shadows, the people responsible were already planning what came next. Crown Emergency Services Iron Core Industries F-72. Fireframe Technical Readout Emergency Response. Exoframe Classification Model EF-72. Fireframe Type Heavy Emergency Response. Exoframe Role Fire Suppression Rescue, Disaster Response, Hazardous Environment Operations Manufacturer, Crown Industrial Systems. Primary Operator, Crown Emergency Services Overview. The EF-72 Fireframe is the standard heavy rescue exoframe fielded by Crown Emergency Services across the Kingdom. Designed to operate in conditions that would kill an unprotected responder within seconds, the platform combines industrial construction equipment, firefighting apparatus, and military-grade survivability systems into a single emergency response machine. Unlike military exoframes, the EF-72 is built around one principle: save lives first, destroy obstacles second. The fireframe can enter collapsing structures, industrial fires, chemical incidents, and disaster zones where conventional emergency crews cannot safely operate. Physical specifications. Specification value: height 3.8 meters, weight 8.2 metric tons. Crew 1 pilot, power plant, Crown fusion turbine hybrid reactor. Endurance 72 hours. Continuous operation, maximum speed 45 km per h, lifting capacity 45 tons. Operating temperature -50 degrees Celsius to 2000 degrees Celsius. External exposure armor. Ceramic titanium composite protection systems. Thermal shielding. The EF-72's outer armor is covered with heat-resistant ceramic plating capable of surviving direct flashover events and prolonged exposure to extreme temperatures. Active cooling network. Thousands of coolant channels circulate cryogenic fire suppression fluid through the frame. During severe fire conditions, the system can vent coolant across the armor, creating a temporary thermal barrier. Atmospheric isolation. The cockpit remains completely sealed. Operators can survive. Toxic smoke, chemical contamination. Biological hazards. Oxygen-deprived environments for up to 96 hours without external support. Rescue equipment. Titan-class manipulators. The EF-72's hydraulic arms can lift collapsed concrete sections, remove trapped vehicles, stabilize structural failures, carry injured civilians. Each arm generates enough force to lift a city bus. Structural rescue package integrated tools include plasma cutting, torch, hydraulic spreaders, breaching saw concrete pulverizer, magnetic lifting clamps, fire suppression systems, hydro water cannon mounted over the right shoulder, capabilities, variable stream pressure. Foam deployment, chemical suppressant deployment, long-range firefighting, maximum range 300 meters. Vapor shield projectors creates a protective mist wall that reduces radiant heat, protects evacuation routes, shields rescue teams, firebreak mode. The EF-72 can deploy specialized suppressant charges to create emergency firebreaks around critical infrastructure. Sensor Suite Phoenix Multispectrum Scanner detects human life signs, structural instability, heat sources, hazardous chemicals, radiation contamination. The system can locate survivors buried beneath several meters of debris. Emergency response AI. Every fireframe contains a support AI. Capabilities include building integrity analysis, rescue route calculation, hazard prediction, medical monitoring of the pilot, coordination with Station 51 Command. Modern versions share technology derived from the same research that later produced advanced systems such as Ghost and Odin. Communications. The EF-72 is equipped with an encrypted emergency communications suite capable of maintaining contact with command centers and rescue teams even during widespread infrastructure failure. Modern emergency communication systems rely on redundant networks and emergency command integration to maintain responder coordination during disasters. Known weaknesses. While exceptionally durable, the EF-72 has several limitations. Slow compared to military exoframes, large logistical footprint, requires specialized maintenance crews, limited combat capability. In combat situations, the EF-72 relies on armor and strength rather than speed. Service history. The EF-72 entered service following the Great Reconstruction period after the Ashfall Crisis. More than 12,000 units have been produced. The machine has become one of the most recognizable symbols of Crown Emergency Services. To civilians, seeing an EF-72 arrive means one thing: help has arrived. Station 51 currently operates several EF-72 variants, and Richard Hale trained on the platform before transitioning to more advanced rescue exoframe systems. Despite newer models entering service, veteran responders still call the EF-72 the workhorse of the Crown.